Resistance. We lead violent lives under a violet sky. We get by, we survive, hear a violent cry. The bow trembles, we remember, it's a rainbow. Suddenly we know we're pretenders, we actually never ended gender. We didn't know how to save the planet, never planned a riot to stop a famine, never really tried jamming a cannon or whatever would have prevented the wars and the damage. The memories vanish, we barely manage to identify the reasons why. Time flies by. We look back on our lives, look me in the eyes, we're not done yet. So take my hand, you're my one life stand. We're in no man's land, it's not what we planned. I understand that the world may end, but till then, take my word, we'll bend all the rules and then we'll stand up against all the cruel intent. Those who still resent, you'll defend, I depend on your strength. We pretend not to see that we offend, we can deal with them. Yes, we feel we will heal from the trauma. Their ideals are the cause of all the grief and the drama. We believe in the future, take your armor. We will see what we're made of, it's not steel. It's the fabric of the cosmos, it's the real. It's the magic we are part of, we are here. It's the meaning that we make of being queer. There's a fiddle in the distance, in the middle of resistance. Our existence is a riddle, it's an inconsistent struggle. We are dancing in the rubble of a brittle, crumbling system, in the midst of mess and trouble. Still insist on contradiction, the destruction is addicting. We are tripping on kisses and the fragments of fiction. In debris we predicted as we witness all this self-inflicted sickness, but we're fearless, still committed to a post-apocalyptic expectation of persistence as we listen to the music in the distance. It is all that's left to live on. You and I, we're resisting.
Hi everyone, today we have with us Marabel, who is a second-year PhD student in the Department of the History and Philosophy of Science, working specifically in the philosophy of chemistry and the ontology of chemical substances. But today we're going to be talking with Marabel about her poem Resistance, which you'll have just heard. So I think my first question really was how did the idea for the poem Resistance come to you, and at what point?
So it was in 2020, actually, in the middle of the pandemic. Everything had just come to a halt. I sort of paused my degree for a bit and then continued, but everything was just so weird and different. And I really had this sense of, oh, this is kind of apocalyptic, but also it keeps going, right? The world keeps going on, even though it's really bad. And I do think, even though that poem came into existence then, it still fits really well because we've seen so much bad stuff happening all the time. And there's always this like new apocalyptic thing happening everywhere. And the world still keeps going and we just have to like grapple with whatever's happening.
Yeah. And I think that's something that does come through in this poem in particular, because I think when you submitted it as a pitch to the scholar, you had said, and I quote you, that you were grappling with a post-apocalyptic world in which we failed to do what it takes to prevent disasters. And I think one of the things that I found really interesting about this poem is the way in which kind of time works in it, because you have this sense of this post-apocalyptic world which comes through in the images of it, but also the sense that you're writing this poem sort of geared towards a future that it could be post-apocalyptic, but we're also in sort of the process of sort of getting there. And I think one of the things that I was curious about is a bit of how you kind of see this relationship between time, the writing of this poem, and also just its connections to the anxieties that you feel around these crises more personally.
Yeah, I mean, like, the pandemic isn't, like the first like major thing, disruptive thing that's happened. That's like been all of humanity all the time. And I think when writing this, it's just kind of made me think about how we think of all these life-altering events. That there's in fiction and in writing, there's usually a sense of, oh, there's like this one event that changes everything, and then it's kind of like over in some way, like everything is over somehow, but that's not really true at all. Like whenever some disaster or something happens, it's usually, first of all, even when it is in our power, when it isn't, or it doesn't seem to be in our power to do something, there usually is something where, you know, society has just failed people and is just continuing to fail people, but time still moves on, and that is part of this like ongoing disaster thing. That's just like at any given point, there could be something, we could do something. There's always some hope, but we have to decide to make changes.
And you say that quite early on in the poem, in terms of sort of, you say we're not done yet.
Yeah.
So also then I think my next question would be how you kind of see the relationship between crisis, the experience of crisis, and hope.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes difficult to feel hope, right? And I strongly believe that hope is in community, and everything that we're rebuilding is found in community and in sort of seeing each other, listening to each other, and that's how we can really continue on. It's because resisting is not this individual thing, it's a collective thing that we all do together.
Mm-hmm. And what would the place of kind of queerness be within sort of how you see hope, I think?
I think this is part of what made resistance so strong in this poem. It's this sense of community that it has been persisting over all kinds of odds, and that has seen, especially in recent years, again with what's happening to the trans community, we have lived through ups and downs, and it's a complicated community, and being together is not easy, but there's still this hope that all this like just survival that's found in having each other, and also making beautiful things, making art, and continuing to make art even in really, really bleak times.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I think sort of towards, as in two kind of interlinked questions on which I wanted to end this, was to ask what you see as the place. So is poetry the primary sort of form in which you do creative writing?
Yeah. So it's I do like some drawing and painting, but that's like I like writing poetry. I don't really write. I mean, I write my PhD, right? That's also a bit creative.
No, of course. But so then I think what do you see as the kind of place of things like writing poetry? What do you think that this form in particular has to offer to the idea of resistance, and to also dealing with these various crises that we're kind of facing at this point?
I think, I mean, I don't want to like exaggerate the place of poetry specifically, but I think just seeing or listening to art and just letting ourselves be, you know, touched by words is a very good starting point to like hear each other in more, not just when we're writing poetry, but more generally, just to really stop and listen and stop to feel. And I think poetry is something that can touch us in this like very deep place in our hearts, and that is something that we need, and we need to do for each other in order to, I guess, continue on.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for speaking with us, Marabel. This has been amazing. And well, yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And also, if we have other videos on the Scholar. So yeah.